Hey guys, let's continue now with the next part, which is the base support, this little piece right here. Again, super simple. I mean, we've done all of this complex shapes with the volcano and everything else, so I'm sure you guys have no questions about how to model that, but we're gonna model them anyway. So Shift A, and we're gonna start with a cube, and we're gonna make the cube a lot smaller. Let's just make sure that cube is on the symmetry line. It is, so that's perfect. And we're gonna bring it down with G to the center line. We can actually go to the side view. Let's isolate it real quick. Side view. And if we turn on our increment absolute grid snap, just to make sure that it's perfectly centered there as well. Cool. So now I am just gonna, again, absolute grid snap, there we go. Let's turn this off. And this thing is gonna be right here. So we already know that the scale index of this thing is gonna be holding pretty much the exact same size as the element. That's telling me that, again, we might need to reduce a little bit of the volcano's size. I'm gonna go to component mode. I'm gonna grab this face right here, and I'm gonna bring it down, G and C, to bring it right around there. Which, as you can see, it's right at the distance where the lower support is. So yeah, that's about it. I would say looks good. And as for the scale on the Y, it's definitely a lot smaller as well. So something like that. Again, this tells me that we need to bring our volcano up because, as you can see here, the volcano does not start until like halfway of this element. Now that we have this, we need to find this thickness right here. So I do think, again, I'm going to be breaking a couple of rules because I'm not sure if the size of this thing is... It does seem to be proportions, so it's probably the volcano that needs to be smaller. So I'm going to go over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to component mode, loop cut, and we're gonna cut this, let's say 5 times. There we go. And then I'm gonna make another cut, but this cut's gonna be a little bit lower in considering the distance I would expect, like right around there, probably a little bit higher, right around there. There we go. We're gonna go to wireframe mode, faces, and we're gonna select all of these faces and delete them. So delete faces. This one, this one, this one, and this one. There we go. And this is gonna give us this sort of like solid object right here. Let's go to solid mode again, go to edge mode, and let's just start filling. So grab one edge and then the other, and then F. Let's get this out of the way so we can see the keys. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or we can just bridge. The other one is just select 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. And here under edge, we do bridge edge loops. And there we go. So this has successfully created this like shape, the area where the volcano is going to be like sitting. Now on this part right here, you can see that we have a little point poking out. So there's a couple of ways to do it. I think in this case, beveling is a good option. So I'm gonna, but actually no, now that I think of it, because it's very, very straight, right? So I'm gonna grab my edge loop again. I'm gonna create a one line right there. And what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna grab this guy's right here. I'm gonna G and Z to push them down a little bit. And now to round this thing, we're gonna grab this guy right here, and we are gonna bevel this quite heavily. And let's give this a couple of divisions. And as you can see, that's going to give us a very nice round effect. Then I do think we need to bevel this guys over here. Like, it's not going to hurt. So let's just give it a nice bevel there. Probably 2 segments. Oh, careful there. And there we go. Finally, I'm going to grab this whole area right here, going down and definitely going in over there. All of these edges. Some of you might be worried about the angons. Do not be worried. Do not fear, my friends. I will show you how to fix them. So we're going to grab all of those. This inner lines, I really don't care as much, to be honest. But now that I think of it, it might not be a bad idea to bevel them as well. So all of these lines, all of these lines. This is indeed a little bit of extra polygons. So I'm debating myself right now whether we're going to be whether we're going to be doing some retopology or not. There we go. Right click, shade smooth. Now I can definitely see that on the underside thing, like it's not perfectly flat. It has this sort of like taper towards the bottom part. So I'm gonna go to wireframe, go to vertex mode, grab all of this vertex right here. And I'm gonna scale on Y a little bit. And then I'm gonna grab all of this guys and I'm gonna scale on Y a little bit as well to generate this sort of effect. Let's get out of symmetry. And another thing that I'm seeing is this is definitely too thick. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but definitely a little bit too thick. Let's scale on Y. There we go. I feel like that's closer to the shape that we're going for. But see how this thing is very thin. But again, this is the kind of stuff that you need to really ask yourself what makes more sense, right? Because if we follow the concept and we modify this a little bit, what might end up happening is that we're gonna have to make the volcano really really thin, and it doesn't match with all of the things that we've done up top here. So this is where again we can take some artistic liberties and be like, hey, you know what? This is not exactly what I think we should be doing for this piece, so I'm not gonna be doing it for the element. So then that tells me that we can take, again, a couple of artistic liberties here. We're going to go wireframe. We're going to go vertex mode. Grab all of this guys. And G and X push them out a little bit. So that now, when we see this thing right here, it's hugging the element a little bit better. And another thing we can do here is grab, for instance, this guys right here. Again, in wireframe, so we grab all of them. Here we can use a little bit of transform in G and X. As you can see, we're gonna give this sort of like a curved effect. And I think that looks a lot better from a design perspective. I'm very, very tempted to bring this into sculpting and sculpt a little bit of a bevel right here. And I think I'm going to be doing it. I mentioned in the last video that I was debating whether or not to add some sculpting. And you can see there is quite a bit of detail. So maybe not every single piece, but it might be a good idea to just add a couple of... Nah, actually, no. Actually, this is what we're going to do. These pieces right here, the supports, we're going to keep them like they are, exactly like that. But for this piece right here, I will show you how to do the bevels. So let's go into, well, first let's do a mirror here. Let's do a mirror to this object so that we get the exact same thing on both sides. Let's apply the mirror. And let's isolate and go into sculpting mode. There we go. As you can see, actually the mirror didn't work properly. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go to the modifiers. Let's add a mirror modifier. And we're gonna bisect on X. There we go. So now that works. We apply. And now R. We go back to sculpting. Sculpting. There we go. Sculpt mode. R. Let's make this a lot thinner. And Control R. Perfect. I am not using my tablet right now. I'm using the mouse, but we can still use the scrape brush, for instance. Let's make sure to turn on symmetry to give this a more like hammered look right here. That way, all of the angles that we had and all of the bad geometry, it's now soft. We don't need to worry about it anymore. Cool. So I am gonna see here, as you can see, I do want to push the volcano up a little bit. So I'm gonna press Alt Q to jump into the volcano. And we're gonna use our grab brush with a big size to just push this section up. Again, we can leave the overlap like that, like it's no big deal. Or we can position it exactly where this thing is. But I think a little bit of overlap is not a bad idea. It makes it look like the stone is like going around the object, which I think works very nice for this particular concept. It still looks heavy. It looks like it could support the weight, which is important. I actually think it looks a little bit thin now, so I might go into layout. There we go. Might go into layout and just scale on Y a little bit. And now let's talk about the bolts. The bolts are very, very easy. They're going to be like the final detail that we're going to be doing here for this high poly. And once we do the bolts, we're pretty much going to be finished with this chapter. We're going to be finished with chapter 2. So as you can see, there's two types of bolts. We got square bolts all over the supports, and we got a 5-sided bolt right there. It's like a no-brainer. If we've done everything so far, this is a no-brainer. So for the square bolts, we're just going to use a bevel square. So I'm just going to use this square, scale it a lot, go to the modifiers, and we're going to give it a bevel modifier. There we go. 2 segments, so we have a round effect, a little bit more aggressive on that element, and that's it. Shade smooth, and we apply. As you can see, we got 1 right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's just position this one right here. The one thing that we do need to be careful about is making sure that this thing is proportionate. Here, we can, of course, rotate it a little bit. I would strongly recommend that you do, so that not all of the bolts are exactly in the same position. This is going to give them a lot more like credibility. So Shift D. This one's going to be really small. There we go. Shift D. Push it out. Scale it up a little bit. Shift D. Scale it up. Rotate it. Just push it where it's supposed to be. Make sure that they're not like pushing that much out. We're going to keep this as separate objects. This is a very, very common question that I get when talking about props. Is like, is it wrong to have overlaps? No, because at the end we're going to combine everything into a single object. So overlaps are really like not a problem. They are a problem in characters, for instance, when you're going to be rigging and there's going to be deformation. In those particular cases, then yes, we might run into some issues. But for this one in particular, it's perfectly fine to have a little bit of overlap. There we go. And finally, Shift A, mesh, we're going to create a cylinder. This is going to be a 5-sided cylinder, of course. And we're just going to add a modifier, bevel, 2 segments, a little bit of a bigger fraction. There we go. And shade smooth. Let's apply this. Scale this down. Rotate this on Y, 90 degrees. And it's just a matter of, where's the cylinder? This one right here. It's just a matter of bringing it where it's supposed to be. Rotate it so that it points in the exact same direction. Give it the proper size. We can scale this on the x-axis to make it a lot thinner. We don't need a lot of geometry pushing in. We could even go to a top view, or rather like a front view, and rotate it so that it's more in line with the rest of the elements. As you can see on the concept, it does push a little bit further out, so I'm just going to push it a little bit more. And to save myself a little bit of time on this process, I'm just going to grab all of this bolts that I just... Oh, actually, we're missing one? I was pretty sure we had one. Oh, seems like we missed one. Okay. So Shift D, we're going to just need one more there. There we go. Again, so we just push this there. And we grab all of these bolts. And I'm going to Control J to combine them into a single object. Control A to freeze all the transforms, and then add modifier. And we're going to do a mirror to the other side. Of course, we're missing this guy and this guy, it seems. So those I'm also going to Control J. And I'm also going to do Control A to apply all transforms. And we're going to mirror this to the other side as well. And congratulations, my friends. If you've gotten all the way to this point, you have yourself your axe. It's ready. It's perfectly ready. And this is a great step to like just appreciate all of the hard work that we've done so far, because the high poly, as I've mentioned, or I've been mentioning throughout this whole series of chapters, is the most important part of the asset for a video game. Now we're going to jump from a technical side of things, or from an artistic side of things into a technical side of things. We're going to go through retopology, we're going to go through bakes, and then we're going to go back into artistic side with textures, okay? But this is kind of like the second part of a triathlon. The first part we just ran and we just created this whole thing. The next part is to create the the low poly. So I just want to do one more extra video, which is going to be a clay render. So yeah, hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one.